I'm not getting sabotaged again. No clicker. So there will be some repetition, just given Layla and myself both are in the food industry, manufacturing, and obviously do CPG products to, sorry, how does this, oh, there we go. Oh, there I am. Okay. Looking much better. Okay. Than today. Anyways, I feel like Happy Pops is like the nice angel on the shoulder, and Julia Nude is like the negative, jaded, sarcastic devil on the shoulder. So you'll get some of the realistic chat. So, and you can tell who's not a D2C founder because mine is really ghetto. So I'm sorry. Anyway. So I used to be a ballet dancer before I founded my companies. So Nude was the first one, and it was a beautiful intro. Thank you. And I, like many food founders, or I shouldn't say many, sorry, not enough. I was very, very frustrated with the lack of quality in the food system, especially coming from a country with socialized healthcare. I felt it was a huge disservice and almost criminal that we mostly are inundated with products that make us sick. And so I wanted to change that, like a very naive and stupid millennial. Here we are. So what I thought mattered when I was starting was nutrition and ingredients. You'll read everything, so I'm not gonna say it all, but I thought all of the quality things mattered. And unfortunately, I thought if you made it, they will come. So mine is more of like a cautionary tale about product market fit, and just being realistic about the industry and what people actually buy, not what they say they want to buy. So what actually matters, obviously, and as Layla touched on, was pricing. Can it compete on shelf? Especially right now, over 25% of Canadians are food insecure in a really tight and tough economy, unfortunately. So the mighty dollar is going to come first. Obviously, it has to grab attention, unlike my slides. They have to have really, really good prominent shelf space. And you can obviously do a nice brand blocking, like we saw your gorgeous brand taking up. And velocity is a really big important thing. That's how many units are selling per store per week. So that's how you stay on shelf. So was there a trade-off? Because I'm very stubborn, like many founders, I have not traded off. So it has been to my own suffering and demise. I am very committed to quality and purity. So as Jamil kindly stated, we do make the cleanest snacks on the market with a very arduous labor-intensive process in our own factory. If I had added in starches or cheap industrialized oils or sugars or natural flavors, like we're so pure we don't even use flavors to manipulate people's brains and taste buds to make you think of like grandma's cupcakes and make you consume more. We're very clean. If I had done all of that, I would be much more successful. But then I wouldn't have been wanting to do it. That was my passion, was to make a difference. So ideal obviously is the better ingredients, no shortcuts and all that. This is idealistic. The reality of things that I've learned through many, many years and mistakes is at the end of the day, the things on that side, on the realities, is more what matters, unfortunately. And the better your product in quality, the harder it is to scale. I don't mean in taste. Obviously, Coca-Cola is very successful and it is not good for you in any shape or form. Sorry to burst your bubble. So behind the scenes, the game is different. I'm not going to spend too much time on the economics of retail. So building a product, you're engineering something that can survive this system, and this system will chew you up and spit you out. As I stated, I'm not a D2C founder. I probably, in hindsight, should have focused more on there. When I started in 2010, but formally in 2012, obviously it was more nascent and less popular to be online. I'm like a boomer stuck in a millennial's body. I really wish I had done more cool things in D2C and website. The customer acquisition cost would have been way cheaper in 2012. But nonetheless, I digress. I did say I would be the jaded, angry founder, so that's what you're getting. So a little bit about the system. And it's gotten more expensive, unfortunately, to start. So if you're contemplating getting into the natural food channel or getting into CPG, in my tenure so far, it's only gotten more expensive because with the rise of technology and Amazon and Walmart and all of the implementation of technologies that they're doing to stay cost competitive and reduce their overhead costs, It's putting a lot of pressure on more of the antiquated supply chain and antiquated retail system. And so as those start to suffer, unfortunately, where are they putting their costs and their increased cost of doing business? To us. Yep, that's right. So it's becoming harder and harder to compete. Our margins continue to get tighter. And it's not that every food manufacturer is evil and trying to make people sick. As costs keep coming down on us, it's like we're getting shit on constantly. We have nowhere to put our costs. And oftentimes the manufacturers or the brands are being utilized as a banking system. So we pay everyone up front, and we may not even get paid. I have a friend who sent $250,000 of product to the States. I think she got paid $10,000 on that like 6 weeks later. So good times. So anyway, quick little exercise. So an item selling for $10 on store shelf, you may think, wow, that brand is making so much money. They usually purchased it for around $450 as it went through the supply chain. And that's before overhead, expenses, personnel, and cost of goods. So oftentimes, and that's not even talking about promotions, oftentimes you're at break even if you're lucky. And many, many times, again, like you spoke about with promotions, you'll be in the negative. And this is one thing I love AI implementation and ChatGPT is now I'm typing in with our cogs and everything, does this listing opportunity make sense? And it will be like, no, it will take you 6 years for a payback. And that's if you can stay on shelf that long. And so I promptly reply, F you. Anyway. So, sorry, I'm at least honest. Okay, so things that I have learned, besides that I should have chosen a different career path, have lots of cash, be independently wealthy, and again, as things have become more and more expensive, unfortunately, people with fantastic ideas and amazing recipes that could be near and dear to your heart and your cultural diaspora are getting squeezed out of the system. Because it's those who can get cash or are already independently wealthy. Literally, you look at the who's who online and social media, which I don't go on, but literally if you're on there, it's just like a popular's kid, class of high school, and it's all the rich kids. That's literally all that the people that have CPG brands. Which sucks. And I was not popular in school, as you might gather. Anyway, so build a community, control production. So like we do, we self-manufacture. It's expensive as shit. When I've spoken with investors, they're like, why do you have such a high CapEx? Because all the money goes into manufacturing. There's not much left over for other things like marketing. But it can end up being a huge asset because then you're not giving away, obviously, all of your IP, your recipes, and you're not giving your line time to someone else who might decide to overnight push you off of the line, and then now you're, shit out of luck. So it can be an asset, but it's hard. I spend most of my time in my factory. Also on the product market fit side, which I lied, I said it was going to be most about that, and it wasn't. It mostly became a therapy session about how I should have chosen a different career path. But anyway, consumers do lie. So when you ask people, what do you actually want? You're trying to do product market fit testing. People have these really idealized ideas of how they actually live and how they actually eat, or aspirationally where they want to be. So if you ask someone, hey, do you think you would love to eat something with no sugar and no seed oils and no starches and no gluten, and it's organic and it's good for the environment, and it was made in a local factory that actually paid people decent wages? Most people would be like, yes, give me that. But then when I would turn my back, no one's buying this shit. They'll still go back to their craft dinner. So take it with a grain of salt when you're doing product market testing. Don't ask your friends. Don't ask your mom. Don't do any of that shit. Like, actually do like what Layla was talking about. Do the hard things. Talk to people, farmers markets, or just put it into a store. Maybe 2 stores, maximum. And just do some quick and easy testing. Online, obviously, which I can't speak to as an expert perspective, but I hear is a good place to also do some of that testing with very low upfront costs. So that's what I would do. And to end on a somewhat optimistic note, which is hard, but despite all of the hard lessons, I do still believe the best products can win. And ultimately, they must, because we're having a health crisis, an environmental crisis, all of those things that we must persist despite the odds, because it's the right thing to do. And after getting knocked up in 2022 and having a kid, which was unplanned, and I'm not going to go on a whole tangent of how much I hate parenthood, but I started a baby and toddler brand. So I may not love little tygs, but I do love their guts. And so I started another company called Wild Ones because I self-manufacture, so I have that flexibility. And that one has been a really nice contrast, having people actually come to me for a change. And we're launching in Walmart in Q1 2027. Metro's come to us. We're launching in Healthy Planet next month, all these things. So it is, yeah, it's a journey. I wouldn't change it for the world. And lots of life lessons. I feel like I've aged 20 years in like 10 years. Anyway, I have no idea what the time is. I think I'm done and ready for some questions.
Thank you so much. Yeah, please put your hand up. If you have a question about margins, we're going to have a talk later, but you can still ask it. Any questions for Julia?
I promise I'm not mean, even though I may seem it. Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation. It was really cool. When you talk about like resilience, right? I think that's like clearly a big key theme in your story. What kind of kept you going through, you know, rejection or maybe not getting the exact results you wanted at the beginning? What kept you motivated? Obviously, you know, you talk about the mission of like making sure that, you know, we are eating more healthy food. But are there other factors that kind of kept you going in this? Because, you know, once the pockets get squeezed, that's usually like one of the hardest things to kind of work through. So I would love to kind of understand what kept you motivated and kept you going.
Yeah. So I'm very stubborn, like I said. Growing up as a ballet dancer, I think a lot of people in the food industry are very masochistic. So I was already used to not getting paid and doing things that hurt a lot. So kind of that's my MO, I guess. And then just to be clear, like it wasn't hard all of the time. Like I was the first Canadian brand on Thrive Market in the States. We launched in the US. I had national distributors. Like I was around at the time to see trends come and go of like raw food, and then it was paleo, and then it was keto, all of which my stuff could kind of fit into. So I say trends come and go, but real food really shouldn't go out of style. So we can kind of mold into different things. So it wasn't always hard, but I would say, yeah, for me, it's the mission, not to sound, you know, too cliche, but it's like start with your why, right? That's what keeps me motivated. And then after a certain point, you're so locked in it that it's kind of like you're in prison and you just can't get out. Yeah, yeah.
Got another question back there.
Sorry.
Thank you so much. This was super cool. But when you're talking about product market fit, did you find that it was easier to get someone to switch their habit, like let's say they're Oreo buyers and they're going for snacks, or find someone who was completely new and get them to go first? Like, which was the easier pathway to do that?
Yeah, so I'll try to be concise. So 2 quick answers. I didn't do shit with product market fit when I started. I make really weird shit. So like look it up, you'll find out. But yeah, so I should have done more of that, which was kind of my cautionary tale. And then in regards to, so the second time around with the baby one, we're doing more of that. And then people don't really change their habits. Like you wish they did, but at the end of the day, they really don't. One of my favorite sayings was from a corporate person at General Mills, where they're like, the consumer isn't always right, but they're always certain. So just, yeah. Hopefully that answers, yeah.
We got one more question.
There's 2 people with their hands up. Did you ask a question yet, sir? Earlier? Oh, they both asked questions then, so I can't choose that way. Someone else choose. Oh, there we go. Sorry. I'll talk to you after. Yes.
Hi, Julia.
Hi.
Thank you so much for your authenticity.
I love your accent. Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much. Speaking as somebody who's like been in the fitness industry and before, the part about people saying that they want to do these things aspirationally really kind of aligned with my experience. Was there a part in the process where you were looking at trade-offs that you had to make did you ever think about pivoting to other kind of areas of food, like keto varieties or other kind of things like this to diversify the product? And then you ultimately decided not to do that. But what things did you weigh up in the process?
Yeah, I think you make me sound like I'm probably much smarter than I am, and that you sit back and think about that stuff. So because we self-manufacture and we have a really unique production process, so we use dehydration, spoiler alert, we're very tied in and committed to what we make and how we make it. So there's only so many different formats we could do. So that's one of the things that keeps us very committed, because we can only do so many things. I mean, I can make kale chips and other things like that, but no one wants those either. Yeah, so that's a tough one. I would say yes, there's been times where I'm like, oh, should we bring in a co-packer and then like diversify to something else? Anyway, I'll try to be concise because clearly I'm not. I'm very verbose. But generally, like I have 12 products already. So generally what you want to do is have like a few core and hero SKUs and just focus all of your resources to those. I did all the wrong things. I have a lot of shit. I'm very like ADHD, and then I'm in like 4 different categories in the grocery store, which you generally don't want to do because it's harder to build a brand and harder to build consumer awareness when you're spread amongst various places. So yeah, none of it was well thought out. Again, that doesn't directly answer your question, but like I'm very tied into what I'm making because of our production process. Yeah, thank you. Or just very stupid, yes, but thank you.